Hey, what's up, man? It's your man Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars. The Jaguars are the worst team in the NFL. It's proven. Losing yesterday to 30-16 to the lowly Houston Texans. I have more about what it means now and what it means for their future on a Monday edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, folks? Thank you for joining another edition of Locked On Jaguars and making us your first listen here every single day. I'm Tony Wiggins. The Jags lose another game. I wouldn't even call it a heartbreaker. 30-16 in their first game without Urban Meyer. The Jags are horrible. They're the worst team in the league, and they're just bereft of talent. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about how we got here. We're going to talk about what they need to do moving forward and exactly how long this thing's going to take for this organization to be respectable. In segment 3, I'm going to discuss whether or not I think they've already done irreparable damage to Trevor Lawrence and his career. Stick around for that because it ain't bad news. But let's get back to it. They lose yesterday 30-16 to the Houston Texans. No need to do a deep dive into what happened in the game. They're just bad. They played the way they always played. I just came away with a number of conclusions. And those conclusions are that the Jaguars do not have an elite player at skill position or an elite player on defense. I think what they have is Brandon Linder is the closest to being at the top of the food chain at his respective position. As much as I like James Robinson, I know y'all going to think I'm sounding like Urban, but I'm not. James Robinson is just not elite. He's not. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's gotten a little heavy. It looks like he looks like he's a little dead-legged, but he doesn't have elite traits and elite characteristics. Solid, good NFL player. Can be a starting running back on a team that can go a long way. But in terms of having those Jimmies and Joes and Jessies that are just flat out better than everyone when they walk out of that tunnel, the Jaguars simply just don't have those type of people. And Trevor Lawrence has the potential to be that, but there's so much that has to go into getting Trevor the proper coaching and the proper structure and the proper personnel around him that he's just not there yet. He's not there yet. And I heard on the broadcast that I forgot who said it, but he said talk to Trevor and that Trevor sort of hopes that they allow him to be involved in the coach picking process. As much as we want to be cliche about things and say that, yeah, you need to get him involved, he's the face of the franchise and give him the keys, and that's a terrible idea. Just let that man play football. He's 22 years old. We're sitting here and Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the keys to Green Bay, and he's a first ballot Hall of Famer with a bullet and one of the 3 best quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life. And this guy doesn't have the keys to his team. Do the other elite quarterbacks, guys that are, does Patrick Mahomes have the keys and have a say on any? No, he doesn't. What about Josh Allen? No. All of these cliches things that people say out of their mouth, it's like if you could dig into a trash can of bad football takes, this is what people actually spit out of their mouth. The last thing that kid needs is more on his plate than he's supposed to have. Trevor Lawrence is a quarterback. Let him play quarterback. Build things around him and give him the things he needs to, I said survive. It looks like survival, but to succeed. Stop falling into these. Give him the keys to the ignition and let him run the franchise. No, you don't let him run no franchise. You have to let him learn how to be elite first, and then you give him say. We got to get this. We don't think smart sometimes when we say stuff. The last thing he needs is more on his plate. He shouldn't be out here having to be the face of the franchise and be the only reason you're gonna put him in. Oh, you know what? We need some good news and a good fit. Let's stick Trevor in front of the microphone. That'll galvanize the community. He shouldn't be having to do that. Here's what Shad Khan needs to do. Shad Khan needs to find him a football man. Someone who has been a scout, did scouting, run GM, and I know everybody's going to say, well, that's what Dave Caldwell was. Yeah, you're right. But you know what? It didn't work. Do it again. It's a tried and true formula. Do it again. Just because you messed up before does not matter. Do it again. Don't do nothing wild and crazy. Don't think outside of the box. That's the kind of stuff gets you in trouble. That's why we're sitting here where we are now. That's the reason, whether you want to admit it or not, the reason why the Jaguars hold the number 1 pick again is because wild and crazy stuff. You guys often hear me say stuff like, we can't waste years. Like last year, I heard a lot of folks saying, well, this is sort of a throwaway year where you kind of like get some balance back. You gut it and you build the infrastructure and get some draft picks and go over to your young, play the young guys, and then you go into next year, you get a little bit more aggressive and you get you a quarterback and now you got to build it around them again. And so by year 3, you should be ready to, okay. So the last 2 years, right, is an absolute total waste of time. This is why you don't treat every single year like, okay, well, we're going to do this year. No, you're supposed to come out with your foot on the pedal all the way to the floor. Man, I'm not waiting to be great. You know what you're going to do? You're going to kick the door down until you're great. You don't go sit and just wait for greatness to open the door and say, come on in. You bust that SOB down. That's what you do. So here we are, 2 straight years. You got Trevor Lawrence, who needs more support, and who, like, some people are like, okay, well, he can't do it by himself. Like, duh, I told you that. So they have nothing else. No one else elite. Like Brandon Linder and Trevor Lawrence has the potential to be elite. They got nice. James Robinson, nice player. Devon Hamilton, nice player. A few other pieces, nice players. Shaq Griffin, nice player. Tyson Campbell, might be nice player. You are not going to win in the NFL. And I'll say this again. At some point, if we're going to compare it to food, you're going to need a bone-in ribeye. You're going to need a rib roast. If you're making a dinner, you're going to need real good salmon. You're going to need some elite stuff on this table to satisfy being great. If greatness is about culinary stuff, we got a lot of meatloaf and shepherd's pie and hot. We got some comfort food. Well, comfort food is fine, but not every day. We might not even have that. We might have like hot dogs, and I ain't talking about all beef. I'm talking about those little chicken franks, those little ones where all the mixed meat is in there. You put them in a microwave, they're 8 inches long, and by the time you run the microwave for 20 seconds, they look like Vienna sausages. That's probably what we made up right now. And it's going to take a while, man. It's going to take a while. They have no elite talent on this team. And you are literally out there losing to a team in Houston that also doesn't have any elite talent except the left tackle. I don't even know if he played yesterday, but they don't have any elite talent on their team. David Culley over there on the sidelines, man. Some dude from Stanford playing quarterback, a rookie. And they had 11 people missing, I think, because of COVID-19 protocols. And you get slapped around in your own stadium. And to that crowd, I'm going to speak for a second to that crowd that's going, see, you got what you asked for when you get rid of Urban. be quiet. He created this mess this past season with that staff and with those Warriors out there. I don't want to hear that crap. He's a big part of he's a huge part of the problem with the lack of development and the way that they ran training camp. And I know I'm coming across hard today, but aren't y'all tired of me talking like this? I mean, dead serious. I know you probably are, but I'm tired of having a reason to. I'm tired of having a reason to. And the bottom line is, we can sit here and talk about this play call, but they're just not good, man. I'll tell you what Shad Khan needs to do, and I'll make sure I tell you about it in just a second here in segment 2 on Locked On Jaguars. You know, you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge, and hopefully I give you that. You switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money. Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone so you can listen to all the latest episodes. The power of 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line so your family can harness all that brain power too. And the power of one of America's largest 5G networks so you can do it all at the speed of 5G. With all that money you'll save and all that knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. More power to save. Boost Mobile. Now listen, there's a free phone limited to new customers and 1 per line. Additional restrictions apply. Offers and coverage not available everywhere for all phones and or networks. See boostmobile.com for details. All right, man, cruising right along here. Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Sorry about the wobble. I almost knocked my laptop down for those viewing this on YouTube. But look, man, I'm hearing all weekend folks throwing out names for the coaching staff. Who ought to be the coach? Who ought to be the coach? Who ought to be the coach? This guy ought to be the coach. This guy. The first thing I believe Shad Khan needs to do is restructure operations. I would fire Trent Baalke too. Little birdie tells me that Baalke ain't necessarily a big fan of Urban Myers, but that's fine. I ain't got time for people saving their CYA. No, you got to go too. I don't want to hear that. Well, it wasn't me picking the draft picks; it was all him. I'm not all for blaming the guy who left for everything. Urban was right about the offense being bad, about them not being able to score points. He missed on their talent level. I think he wouldn't say anything bad about players publicly, but they're just not very talented. They're not. Shad, though, needs to look at operations. Before I even get to a coach, I'm fixing that front office. And I'm going out here, and I'm going to San Francisco, and I'm going to Kansas City. And there's a couple of guys, Mike Bradway. I hear Ed Dodge. Now, Ed Dodge, let me tell you about Ed Dodge, the assistant GM in Indy. Ed's a no-nonsense guy. Ed is not necessarily like Mr. Nice Guy. So after what just happened with Urban, it might not work to bring another guy in here that's such a straight shooter. But he's really good at what he does. Do yourself a favor and go look at the front office. I'm not going to call it a depth chart, but look at the front office directory of the Kansas City Chiefs in their operations. So between Brett Veach, who's the general manager, first of all, they have a team president, but I'm going to go from the GM. Between him and Andy Reid, when you look at operations with all of their vice president of this and vice president of that, player personnel, all this stuff, there's like 7 or 8 people. And this is an organization that has Andy freaking Reid as the coach, and he probably has veto power over everything. So he's a big fish coach who is really like the GM. That They probably, while he doesn't probably say who comes, he'll probably say who goes. And he'll have a huge impact in draft and free agency. You got all of that structure with that guy. The Jaguars will have like a rookie coach, and they don't have that structure, those same checks and balances in the scouting department. You got to get somebody in here that's going to do it right. Somebody who's going to run operations. Someone who you have a cap guy with you, a salary cap dude that can tell you what you can and can't do, and navigate you through how to do it. But you need a serious talent evaluator. You need somebody that really understands team building. And then you need that guy to pick the coach. And that guy needs to explain to Shad why he's picking that coach. It doesn't need to be a scenario where, okay, I'm going to pick the GM and I'm going to pick the coach. Now I want you guys to work together. That's backwards. Let the guy who's running the operations pick the coach, because that gives you another layer and another line that he probably knows exactly what that coach wants, and that coach understands exactly what he wants. And then let that coach be someone who runs dynamic offense, who still knows how to build a staff. Let it be someone that these pros with. Okay? And let that coach go out and get a quarterback's coach that's going to spend all of his time with Trevor Lawrence. How about Justin Fuente as quarterback's coach / pass game coordinator to work underneath whatever coach you pick, something like that. I don't want to go backwards with it, but that's what I'm saying. You need a steady hand and a guy who's just going to be right there to mechanically tell Trevor everything he's doing, to be a sounding board. And then you need a play caller, a guy that knows how to get to manufacture offense. But more than that, you just need a structure from operations all the way down to position coaches. Everybody has to be on the same page, like the real good organizations are. But it starts in operations, because as bad as this team has been over the last decade, there's one common denominator, and it's Shad. Doesn't mean he's a bad guy. Doesn't mean he doesn't want to win. Doesn't mean he doesn't care. It just means he probably doesn't know how to do it. And seemingly, it seems like he doesn't know how to pick the correct people. You got a chance, man, but you can't keep looking at these years as throwaway years. Like, okay, you're gonna do this year, and you're gonna put yourself in the box, and then now we're gonna do. And I don't know what Urban had going on with the way he was structuring things and doing things, but I told people last summer during training camp that all of that Tebow mess and doing all of that, and folks saying, well, it's just one roster spot. It doesn't matter. It does matter. James Robinson was one of the 5 best players on this team. How do we know he wasn't number 90 last year? He was an undrafted free agent. For an organization to just hit on an undrafted free agent, you can't tell me that number 90, the 90th player coming into training camp, it doesn't matter. You just had evidence that it matters. Everything matters. That's what we need to start saying here. Everything matters. All of this little stuff matters. Because the great organizations and the teams that do it right, everything matters. Every minute, every rep, everything matters. And that's the only way you're going to get it right. That's it. Every little thing has to matter. Everything. You got to get the culture. You got to get it right, but you got to do it with people, longtime football people who have a plan, who are like-minded, and get this thing rolling. The funny thing is, if you get it like that, it almost never goes away because you know what it looks like. The Steelers and the Packers have never been terrible in my whole life. Like terrible, like this bad. No, they never have. They've never been just awful. Neither has the Chiefs. They probably had a year or two where I think the Chiefs went 14 one year. But they had a bunch of injuries in the next year. Boom, they're right back in the playoffs. They've never been back, and it's like that for a reason. I don't know why it's so hard to emulate those teams as opposed to doing it the other way and not. Talk about Trevor Lawrence. A lot of people throwing buzzwords around. I ain't going to give too much credit to individuals who talked about that stuff, but I'll tell you what I think about Trevor, and I'll be deadly honest with you, and I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars after I tell you guys about Built Bar. That's right, the holiday season. You need to grab the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar this holiday season, or even better than a candy bar, because it's not chalky and all waxy like those other protein bars. Built Bar is filled with so much holiday goodness. It's rich with decadent flavors covered in chocolate. And it's amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and it's high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. There are so many flavors you'll have a hard time choosing which one you like. But you know what my favorite one is, and that's the salted caramel. All right? Because it's the season of peace and love, don't bring your favorite Built Bar flavor at family parties. People are so passionate about their favorite flavor, they'll fight for it and things to get out of hand. I hope not. Here's what you need to do. Go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off of your order. Now, if you like those marshmallow treats, they have some of those. They have the Built Bar Puffs. They're light and fluffy and marshmallowy through and through. Different flavors, all covered in chocolate. It tastes so good, you won't believe that they're filled with protein. Once again, it's built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off of your order. And make sure you head over to Bet Online, especially on Christmas Day, man, because you're going to have some good games and you might be able to catch you some. So you need to get over there where Bet Online has you covered for all of your season props, odds, and lines. And they're better than ever before as football season continues to march to the playoffs. Bet Online remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive that bonus. Now, basketball season is in full swing. Football is a little unpredictable too because a lot of guys are missing because of different protocols. So you might be able to spring an upset. Some good boxing and UFC. It's always on the weekends, and of course your favorite Vegas casino games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. And I know where your listening starts here, where your first listen. So you start with Locked On Jaguars every single day. And I appreciate you for joining us here on this platform, wherever you get your podcast. And I remind you, we're free everywhere. You don't have to pay. You'll never have to pay for Locked On Jaguars. So Trevor Lawrence. Somebody put an article up on one of the pages. A guy who used to be an NFL scout. I can't think of his name. He thought Trevor was going to be a bust, and now he's saying he is a bust. In fact, he went so far as to say that we got rid of the wrong guy, basically. It wasn't Urban's fault. It was Trevor's fault that Urban got fired. Just say you know nothing about this team without actually saying you know nothing about this team, because I cover this team every single day. Joffrey Lannister, Urban Meyer got himself fired. It had nothing to do with Trevor Lawrence. Nothing. And he didn't get fired because of their play. The play was only showing you that it wasn't worth having him around here. He didn't get fired because they didn't win enough games. That's not it. It's lazy. It's also incorrect. Has Trevor been as good as I thought he would be? No, he has not. Y'all can think I'm hating all you want to, but no, he has not. He's not been as good as I thought he was going to be. There were people, though, that whispered, hey, watch his mechanics a little bit. He gets a little funky. He didn't play under center at Clemson. Now, you got to kind of watch out a little bit, man, because, didn't do this and didn't do that, didn't do the other thing. So, hey, man, it might not be right. And some of those people are right about a lot of stuff. He has some kinks he has to work out. He's a rookie quarterback. He has some things that he has to work through. Yes. He has some stuff he has to work through and get past. That being said, it's too early to call him a bust, and it's also too early to think that he can't get to the heights where everyone thought that he could go in terms of being a generational talent. You see, the thing about Trevor that I'm most that I actually like the most is that he's unflappable. He tries. He doesn't shrink. If anything, he'll get desperate and try some crazy stuff, and that's not good either. But that's better than shrinking and getting small in the moments. And we've seen quarterbacks in the past like Blake Bortles, and we've seen that kid they took out of Missouri years ago. See, this is why I'm getting older. Blaine Gabbert. We've seen those guys sort of shrink in the moment and kind of get small. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't do that. Trevor keeps his head up. He looks you right in the eye. He comes, he says, hey, I got to be better. He does whatever. He's a quarterback. He's a leader for real. And folks just want to watch all 22 and nitpick every single thing. You seen those wide receivers he has out there? You remember I talk about those hot dogs? Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Look, ain't nothing personal. I like cats. They're just not it. Hell, you might think I can't do a podcast. You cool? You say, you suck, Wig. All right. I'm just giving you my honest assessment. Because if I don't say that they're less talented, then I got to really, if I say something else is going to point towards their character, I'm going to say they're not trying. And I think they're trying as hard as they can. I really, really do. I think they are trying as hard as they can. I just don't think they're very good. They're going uphill, and you go with two bad spark plugs. It's just, man, I'm doing the best I can. I just can't make it. I'm sorry. And this is what happens when you properly don't team build and you have guys doing stuff up here when they should be doing stuff down here. Guys who should be just role players are your frontline talent. And Trevor he's not able to really get his off and show you what he really can do because he doesn't have it. And the offensive line doesn't help him either, especially when they start getting worn down in games. And I've been told y'all that, yeah, they good. They front runners, but watch what happens to them when people start beating up on them. Not elite. Guys running around them like they ain't even standing there. Not elite. Just okay. I blame part of that on Dave Caldwell, but quite frankly, he had to tear it down. He had to tear everything down. And basically, that whole last year, he was just setting it up for the next guy. And then the next guy came in here and just drafted people whose living room he had sat in or one of the coaches knew and just totally eliminated everybody else. They have nothing to show for their last two drafts when they were picking number one and they had 2 first-round picks. They had 2 first-round picks in each of those drafts because of the Ramsey trade, and they have absolutely zero to show for it. Nothing at all. So whereas those 2 years were supposed to be building blocks, you're now rebuilding in year 3. They're not building blocks. There's no foundation. Remember that analogy I gave y'all back in the day? I said, this is why I don't believe in throwing away years. Because the analogy I gave you back in the day was everybody wants to always slow roll and build a thing slow, but you're stuck in the same spot. The Jaguars are literally like the cartoon when the little animal starts running, but he stands there and he takes 10 steps before he moves. They're right back to square one after the so-called rebuild in 2020. They're worse because they can't, other than Trevor Lawrence and maybe Tyson Campbell and James Robinson, there's 3 people. They don't have a whole bunch of people that they can count on and that you can say, okay, he doesn't need to be replaced. Go through their roster and tell me how many guys you say this about. Oh, he doesn't need to be replaced. Oh, he can't be upgraded significantly. Oh, now he's pretty good. Maybe Miles Jack. How many times I told y'all to watch 41 and see if you see elite pass rusher or not? He needs a dude on the other side of him. And you got to make a decision about him within the next year or two. Are you going to break the bank for him or not? Has he been good enough for you to break the bank? We were talking about that dude like he was TJ Watt a year ago. They wasted time, and if they're not careful, they're going to waste that quarterback. And if they're really not careful, they're going to ruin him. Fix football operations first. Stop thinking about a coach. That's it. I tell you what you should think about is the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling. Before you make your wagers, make sure you find, subscribe, and like the Locked On Bets podcast. Check it out for all of the tips you might need, especially with these dudes missing these games and in the NBA. And I'm telling you, sometimes you need a little help with that. You need to understand who's in and who's out. And if you don't know the guys replacing them and what their capabilities are, you listen to the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and Lee Sterling, and you're going to get some pertinent information. We thank you again for joining us here on Locked On Jaguars. We got a long way to go, man. We're going to start looking at some draft picks here pretty soon. And before we can really get into that, we got to see which way they go from an operation standpoint. But that would be my advice to the Jaguars. Do the hard work and get the right people behind this football team that could help Trevor Lawrence and just be a quarterback and not have to be a guy that's making decisions on who the head coach is going to be. Leave that to the people. Even if you screwed that up before, you better keep trying. But don't you get crazy and start hiring these guys that have no experience and haven't come from good organizations to learn how things go. You just have to really be sound, fundamental, and solid right now if you're Jacksonville. All right, man, that's me, Tony Wiggins. My time is up here right now. Thanks for joining the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We will see you guys